I do agree with the notion for weight loss of restricting calories, but I think it's done completely wrong, and that's why it's very hard to maintain. And one of the biggest mistakes with calorie restriction is what people do is they cut their calories by reducing their fats and their proteins. And they increase the type of carbs, which aren't the ideal, so all your grains and pastas and so on. And that's the wrong way to do it. It's really not a good way to do it. If you look at these populations, so let's say you've got this muscly chap here. Also, while you'll see, they're not just big smiley people. The Price was a dentist. So that he looked at all their teeth, and they didn't have dental cavities. And that's a disease thing, that's not an oral hygiene issue. These people didn't have, like this guy here, probably wiped his teeth with a cloth and then had the photo taken. Okay? But they're very lean, and if you look at these statistics, at least well over 50% of their calories are coming from their fat content. And if someone's looking to lose weight, that's where the majority of their calories should be. It's very easy to go into a calorie deficit in a healthy way, which doesn't drive your metabolism down and you go into storage mode and so on. It's very easy to go into a calorie deficit by upping your fat and your protein and making your carbohydrate source all the vegetables. Very, very easy to do. So that's why a lot of people say, I'm eating more than I did before, I feel full and satisfied, but actually I'm losing the weight very easily. So here, just an example, these populations, and most populations have the majority of their calories are actually from their fat. A good piece of advice is eat healthily, and please avoid crap. But crap stands for something. It stands for carbohydrates, refined sugars, additives, and preservatives. These are the major causes of modern diseases. And this is how most people eat. When people say to me, I have a good diet, it depends what they're coming to me for. If they're coming to me for dietary advice, we'll go into that. If they're coming to me because of back pain, I just want to get a rough idea where they're at. But a lot of people say, oh no, I've got a pretty good diet, pretty good. And they generally believe that. I go, what are you eating? And they go, I have cereal for breakfast, I have loads of low-fat yogurt, I'll have sandwiches for lunch, I'll have whole grain bread, and I'll have like a chicken pasta for dinner. And I'm thinking, this is why this person's diabetes is getting worse. But we hear that all the time. I'm not talking about the person, and this is not meant disrespectfully, but the person that eats nothing but obvious junk food, there's a lot of psychological issues there to be doing that. I'm talking about people that are following what sounds like a healthy diet, and it's wrong for them. Okay? So let's talk about eating healthy. And we do have to be careful with modern science. A lot of modern science is just blatant fraud, just absolute fraud. Okay, but there's also, you have a trial of, let's say, 100 different trials running, simultaneous trials, and one of them shows the results. So some sort of journalist then shows you that one. It's just a random result, or they skew the information. So they say, don't have fatty foods. And I agree with them when they talk about, deep frying your food in vegetable oil. I agree with that. But it doesn't mean you should restrict your butter intake. They often don't distinguish between them. They'll say don't eat red meat, but they're talking about processed hot dogs versus a free-range steak. So it's often so limited. It's either deliberately, it's either made up, out of context, or it's so vague. So let's talk about eating healthy. This is a sad state of affairs, but we had the food pyramid come in. Okay, the food pyramid is essentially the big bit at the bottom, a little bit at the top. Eat a lot of the big bit, a little bit at the top. Now they've changed it to the food plate. It changes all the time, but that's how they tell you to eat. And now they generally tell you to eat essentially mainly sort of whole grain, lots of fruits and vegetables. I agree with the vegetables, not necessarily the fruits. And right at the top you'll see a little bit of fat, and they've sort of moved things around. Again, if anyone who's of retirement age or have grandparents who are a lot older than that, they would know. If you say to them, what did they grow up on? It would be, things cooked in lard and dripping, loads of meat, and essentially meat, fat and veg. That's really what they had. Maybe they had some bread, but they'd go to even if you get real bread, if you don't have it that morning, it goes hard. So why does it not do that? It's not real bread even. Stuff is changed like that. So this is what came in. So we started having low-fat foods. Low-fat typically means high sugar. That's normally what it says. If you see low-fat on something, it means high sugar. You have imitation foods. It's surprising how brainwashed we all are because of media. It's out there. It's just brainwashed. Unless you're in that field, you don't spot it. But, you'll have margarine. Margarine is a fake butter. It's an imitation. But it's so common now, people think, well, that's good, isn't it? It's imitation. You wouldn't say, I've got AstroTurf, I'm going to, you know, put my cows to eat that and say they're free range. It's fake. It's fake. So we, again, bombarded with all this fake food. And we're so used to that. We started eating way more breads, pastas, cereals, fruit juice, all the high sugar, processed, instant convenient food. If you look at how cereal was marketed, it's very derogatory to women. Essentially, cereal was marketed as a way of feeding the kids quickly so you can get on with your housework. That's what it was. It was a quick, convenient food. It wasn't a health food. It was a quick way of feeding a family. You know? Why is sandwiches so common to lunch? It's only because big industry didn't want to have canteens all the time. You had to have a proper lunch break with knives and forks and so on. It's just so you can work for your lunch hour. That's all it was. You know, the pastas and stuff like that. I mean, that's just sort of a cultural difference. But people used to have meat and veg when they got home. Now they have a bowl of pasta, which is just essentially a junk food. Now, I'm not saying we can't have junk food. You know, most people, even people with some blood sugar issues, can have some junk food. But if we're having it all the time, waking up with a bowl of cereal, some fruit juice, then we're having a sandwich at lunch, we're having pasta and stuff, I'm not then too worried about the biscuit with the cup of tea. You know, people often focus on the wrong things. I'm worried about all this junk food which is snuck in. And again, if you look at that, you go, that's a healthy family. You know, it's got a lovely smile and the kids look happy and they're off to go. But it's all just processed junk, I'm afraid. Okay, and if we don't know, we can't then choose it. But one of the things I always get asked is, what do you have for breakfast, Michael? What do you have for lunch? What do you have for dinner? But typically the breakfast. And this is a modern trap again we fell into. Unless you are a person who's a real foodie and experiment with your food and you have loads of different foods you eat. So therefore you could have 30 different breakfasts that you'd have. Hopefully not all in the same morning. You could have 30, 40 plus different lunches and dinners. Most people don't have that variety. Okay, and we say you need at least 20 different meals you eat on a regular basis to have any chance of getting the nutrition you need from your food. Any chance. You can't have the same healthy meal and think you can get everything from it. So we need variety. Well, if you break that up into a breakfast selection, lunch selection, dinner selection, it's very limiting. So I say is, how much would you like to eat for breakfast? What makes you feel good? Okay, and it should never be, I have breakfast, don't have breakfast because I'm in a rush. That's not really a good enough reason. If you don't want breakfast, that's fine. I don't feel everyone has to have it, but it should be what your body needs. I feel quite good with quite a big breakfast. I feel good on that. Okay, some people prefer something smaller, but it's just a meal. So I would very happily have lamb for breakfast, steak for breakfast, poached eggs, a chicken salad for breakfast. Might have some scrambled eggs with some smoked salmon and some salad. I'll have any meal that I could eat at any point of the day, I'll happily have for breakfast. And again, people are in this like, I can't have that for breakfast. No, if you like lean foods, there's lots of lean foods. So if you want to increase the variety of the foods you eat, you've got to come away from the idea that this is breakfast, this is lunch, this is dinner. It is a meal, and any meal you could have at any point of the day, you could have for breakfast, lunch or dinner. So that's why a lot of people say, well, mornings are really, really difficult for me. So they might do something quick like scrambled eggs. Like I say, a bit of smoked salmon, a handful of salad I've made up the day before. Very easy. Someone else might say, do you know what we had? I made a lovely lamb curry last night, and so they have that for breakfast. You know? So you see, it's difficult if we're not used to it, but we get used to anything we want, you know, and that's why people are after the quick, instant food, but it's not a healthy food, you know.